think I'm going to call the meeting to order. The meeting of the Finance and Auditing Committee. And we have enough committee members. If any of you are not on the committee, I'll appoint you to the committee. And Madam Chair, would you please call us the roll?
Thank you. Good morning again, everyone. We're going to start with Director Dorsey, who's absent. Giudice.
Here.
Rosebowl.
Here.
Hernandez. Is absent. Maston.
Here.
Rodoni.
Here.
Vice Chair Park.
Present.
Chair Rabbit's absent. President Cochran.
Here.
Thank you. You have the quorum, but you are not a committee of the whole. Also in the room, we have Directors Garbarino, Hill, and Terrio, so you can.
I did just ask them to join, if you would, please. All right, thank you. I think I'm going to go out of order here. I know that Shane is here and wants to talk to us under public speaking, under public comments. And rather than wait till the end, Shane, I think I'd like to move just the general public comments to the front. So if there's anyone from the public that would like to comment on any item that is not on the agenda, I'll take that now. Is that you, Shane? I have a card.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you were calling me.
I am.
Okay.
I am.
I guess I'm the only one, huh? Thank you, Chair Parr and Directors Shane Weinstein again, President of ATU 1575. I come to you today because I was recently informed by bus leadership that there would be a roughly $675,000 cut in bus operator wages from our current June 2024 sign up to our upcoming August 2024 sign up. And that boils down to roughly $6,000 annually on average for each bus operator. How is that possible? Let me just make you understand something very quickly. Bus operators do not work 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, 8 to 4. They don't work that type of schedule. They work a longer schedule between 11 and 16 hours per day. They have no qualms with being at work that long. They know that the longer they're at work, the more that they are compensated. And they're grateful for that. But in this case, what the district has done is manipulated the schedules, shorten their days, and in essence, cut their pay. So again, the district has cut the recovery time, or what we call recovery time or break time, and made that shorter from bus operators' schedules. And what they're doing is they're putting them back to work quicker and paying them less money. So after you're done driving a 45-foot bus for 5.5 hours, you're going to need more than the given half hour or hour break. I want to make everybody aware here, the directors, my bus operators are forced to change their schedule 7 times per year, okay? 7 times per year, their money changes. 7 times per year, their schedule changes to where they need to get their family to take kids or whatever the case may be. It's 7 times a year that changes. This is the largest swipe of money that the district has taken from bus operators since August of 2020. If you remember in COVID, when we totally canceled out service, we cut all of the schedules basically in half almost and lost a lot of money during that time. But the difference between now and then was the fact that we decreased service and so we lost money. Here, we're increasing service. We're working 50 hours a day more and we're getting paid less money. And that's because of the shortening of the breaks. If you can recall back October of 2023, a study done on wages throughout the entire district, maybe we're underperforming. The bus operators were 14% below market, and that's in comparison to Samtrans, VTA, Muni, all of the other large Bay Area transit systems. That number is only getting larger as we speak because of practices that we're talking about right now, being able to manipulate those schedules, any type of raise that you had, whether that was negotiated or that you just took, you're probably not going to see that raise. I can assure you that the operators have a raise coming on September 1st of 2024. If this were to go through, they will be making less money after the raise than they did before without having this cut. Bus operators are the backbone of this operation, and this has really been a gut punch to the entire division. The implications that this may have that goes through a tremendous, and we should all be very concerned about it. We've seen it before in August of 2020 when we had 207 operators. Today we had 175 after the great exodus of Golden Gate bus transit operators during COVID. This too is going to cause some to retire. This is going to cause some to quit. We will also see an increase in sickness and injury because operators lack of proper rest, all of which could be avoided by keeping reasonable time in bus operators' schedules. Safety is a huge concern. Driving more, resting less, and losing pay is a terrible combination. Many bus operators live paycheck to paycheck and drive multiple hours to and from work to commute. We all know how expensive gas, groceries, utility bills, mortgages, kids, college, etc. are these days. Taking multiple thousands of dollars per year from operators literally overnight is not fair. Simply put, it's not right. I want to be clear. We just spoke about the fiscal cliff.
Could you wind up, please?
We just spoke about the fiscal cliff, and you have my word that I'm going to assistance that we can get coming into the bridge. I'm imploring you, directors. $675,000 was taken out on an annual basis. I hope that you will find a way to put that back in so that we don't, so the operators don't see any loss. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shane. Let's see if there are any comments from anyone else.
Justine, do we have any other speakers for public comment right now?
We have no other speakers for public comment at the moment.
Thank you. We're going to loop back to you at the end of the meeting, just in case if there's anybody else that joins the line, and then if they would like to speak under public comment, okay?
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thank you. Director Mulligan, do you have a?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Weinstein, for addressing the board on this issue. I'd like to speak to it and offer a slightly different perspective. We provide transit service to meet customer demands. We provide less customer service today than we did before the pandemic, but we've been adding back service slowly as customers return. We've been very nimble. A third of the people riding a Golden Gate transit bus today were not riding our system before the pandemic. So we've been very creative about how we try to grow and maintain ridership. We're very fortunate that a couple years ago, the Bridge District, working in partnership with the ATU Local 1575 and a nonprofit organization creating apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. And kudos to Shane and to former bus manager Mona Babauta. Those efforts have paid off. So we hired 21 additional bus drivers recently. We have 8 more in our current class. So we've hired more operators so we can spread the work out to reduce overtime. So it provides slightly shorter days for some operators. Some operators will have the opportunity to make more money, but other operators will no longer be able to bid a shift that has 77 hours in a week. So instead, they may be only able to bid a shift and get a shift that has 65 hours in a week. A 77-hour-a-week shift is a hard job. To have a commute on top of that is hard. I would propose that having a shorter shift with less overtime is safer. It gives you more opportunity to get rest. I would also proffer that having a slightly shorter shift is good for the pension. The pension allows these 77-hour shifts to all count towards your highest year. This is a woefully underfunded pension. The trustees have not modified it, whether it's legal or not. I'm not an attorney, to reduce spiking. But this will reduce the opportunity for spiking. It will reduce those opportunities, and it will help the underfunded pension. But what we are doing in August is providing the service to match customer demand in an efficient fashion. Years ago, we had a lot of commute service. Before the pandemic, about half of our hours of bus service were for our regional buses that operate 23 hours a day on the 101 corridor from Santa Rosa to San Francisco and across the Richmond-Santa Fe Bridge. But the other half of our hours of service were commute buses. And in the morning, we'd have 25 express trips out of Mill Valley on the Route 4, as it was then called, to San Francisco. Today, we have 5. So we really don't need to have as much of that long day commute service. And so what we're doing in August is we're spreading out the work. We're reducing overtime slightly for some operators. We're providing a good paycheck for the new operators, not just an 8-hour day, but a big paycheck, so they'll stay here and tell their friends Golden Gate's a good place to work. So we are doing what we always do. We're trying to optimize service, and we're fortunate that we have the luxury that we've been able to hire a lot of bus drivers recently through the apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. And, you know, this does raise the issue, though, about how we compensate our bus drivers. And so I'd like to propose that, because Jane brought up that we're 14% less than Samtrans. The hourly wage rate we pay is not necessarily indicative of how much you earn. Like I said, people are bidding 77 weekly shifts, maybe now 66 hours a week, but it might be prudent for us to come back at a future meeting of the appropriate committee and do a presentation on the bus driver pay formula so you can understand how compensation bus drivers. Some of them's total compensation last year exceeded Honoret Co. Wong's, our district secretaries. And so it is true that we have more operators. We're spreading the work out to all the operators, and some operators will have a little less overtime. But I would propose that a 66-hour work week is still a long work week. It still will compensate them extraordinarily well, and it really helps us retain the new operators to have more than an 8-hour day. But with that, I'd like to, if it's the president's to come back at a future meeting and have staff do a presentation on bus driver pay, because I think it would be enlightening for the board members to have it understood. They have very, very hard jobs. They are the face of the district. They represent us extraordinarily well. And they are well compensated, but some of them will be earning less and some will be earning more with the new sign-up. The sign-up happens several times a year, as Mr. Weinstein said, and it's an opportunity for people to choose to bid different shifts, but the opportunities to bid 77-hour days is going down. There's still a couple in the new sign-up.
Director Maston and then Director Theriault.
Would it be possible to put a pause on the cut that Mr. Weinstein is talking about until after that presentation?
No. The sign-up is set. We have to notify. It's a complicated process, but the question for the board is, do you want staff to do its job? Do you want staff, we're spending one-time federal COVID money. If we hire more operators and reduce overtime a little bit, when we're spending one-time federal COVID relief money, is that something that you can explain to your neighbors as being perhaps a prudent decision for your staff to make?
In his comments today and the email that he sent out this morning, just before we started the meeting, he talks about cuts to recovery time or break time, the rest of the world would call it.
If you have a 77-hour shift, you have a lot of break time.
And
you're paid for all that time. So you're not driving 77 hours a week. You might be driving 50 hours that week, and then the other 27 hours you're compensated for, but you're not behind the wheel of a bus.
so wouldn't that be a negotiated change?
We're complying with all the requirements in the collective bargaining agreement. We're not changing anything in the collective bargaining agreement. And some operators will make more money, have the opportunity to make more money, while others will have the opportunity to make less. We spread the hours out. Another policy question is, do you want to have a lot of people working a 77-hour week, or is shortening those and having more operators on board a good thing? Because that's what we're talking about. So we reduce the number of people that could bid 77-hour shifts by about a little more than a dozen. And so for those drivers that are looking for that last year, that high year, for those drivers that for whatever reason enjoyed working that long, it's very fruitful for them to be able to bid that shift. We're going to have fewer of those available to them. I feel that from a safety perspective, reducing the amount of the days, recognizing that most of our bus operators don't live nearby, they're commuting on top of that 77-hour work week, is something that's probably good public policy, and it's good from a safety perspective.
And when do our new drivers come on board?
We have 21 that are on board, and we just started a class, I believe, that has 8. Is that correct, Les?
Yes.
So, we have increased staff pretty significantly, and we're adding service as customers come back, and we'll continue to add this. But those really 77-hour work weeks are artificial constructs absent having a return of our commuters. When commuters come back, we'll need more of those, and we still have some. I'm not saying there's no 70-plus hour shifts. There's just fewer of them in the August side. As commuters come back, we'll continue to add service, and those generally create those longer days.
Okay, thank you.
Director Theriault. This is at the risk of having a discussion public comment item, but I think it's important it'll happen now or later in the meeting.
This will actually discuss the item. It will request something as a result of it.
Okay.
And the fanfare I just got from Cochran's phone.
Does that mean we've morphed into the discussion?
The sign up in August, we have another meeting in July,
No, but the change takes effect in
Change takes,
August.
so the sign-up is occurring now.
What's the schedule on the bidding?
We'll start bidding in July, for the August 11th service.
Would it be possible to have the presentation in July on the bus drivers?
Sure. Yeah.
That way, before the thing goes into effect, at least.
Well, it would be instructive for you to see how bus drivers are compensated. And you can go to Transparent California, which is a website that gathers data from all public agencies. And you can see that last year, some bus operators' total compensation was more than your district secretary. So we'll be shortening that possibility, but they'll still be great paying jobs.
And I assume, Director Terrio, that you'd like that to be on the Finance and Auditing agenda.
Please.
Got it. And Director Redondo?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to ask questions. I just wanted to, I think I heard this from Dennis, want to verify this change won't result in any service cuts or impact?
That's correct. We're slowly adding service back. But so what this is just spreads the existing work out among more operators.
And as I heard, I understand that there's more drivers. The impact is less over time.
That's correct.
And how many total drivers do you have? This new 21?
I don't know our current head count. I could email you after the meeting. 159. Yeah. The ex Shane and Les and Kelly, they know the numbers.
Okay, because that's a lot less than the 175 that.
We have drivers that are in active duty and we have drivers on long-term leaves. So I get a daily report now, thank you, Les, that shows all that. So I can tell you how many drivers we have as employees and how many are off on any given day. And so we, the active fleet is a little bit less.
Okay. And then I have the same question that Director Mattson has. At what point does this become a work condition and should be negotiable? But I think you've answered
The
that.
contract addresses that, and so what we're doing is consistent with the terms of the contract.
And then a better understanding that if we're having more drivers, less overtime, how that actually results in savings, because I didn't know there was such a large cost to overtime versus hiring new employees. They're very expensive too. So.
And that's where I think the president on budget pay would be instructive, because as the day gets longer, the amount of the overtime and how it's calculated increases. And so if you go from 77 hours to say a 65-hour shift, the big difference is not just the 12 hours.
I look forward to the presentation.
Yeah, we look forward to giving it.
Thank you for that offer. Director Grossbaum.
I had a question. Are you concerned, for one, are you concerned that you are going to lose a lot of the longer term drivers because some of them may be used? If you're going to lose several $1,000s, I can see why some of them may want to leave. And second, the other issue is, based on the surveys, it sounds like these bus drivers are paid less than quite a few of the other Bay Area transit agencies, and it seems likely they're going to come back in the next bargaining to try and make up for this lost pay. Is that a concern?
You have 3 questions there. So I'll take the first. The first is I don't anticipate a lot of drivers will retire based on this. I think we had a big retirement in the early days of the pandemic because that was a much more seismic shift in operator pay. And sometimes people bid these shifts for a short period of time, for a year, and then so they get their high year for their pension. With respect to your second question was, I'm trying to blank now. The third question was bargaining. I'm sure I'll come back to bargaining. The second question dealt with the pay. And I think that's where our hourly rate is lower than others, but our pay formula more than makes up for it. So our pay formula is different than other operators. And so if you drive 3 or 4 hours in the morning, and then you have 4 hours off in the middle of the day, and then you drive 4 hours in the evening, you'll pay 12 hours, but the hours that you're driving, your pay has multiple suppliers. And so the hourly rate is not indicative, and that's why I think the presentation on pay would be, the pay formula would be so instructive, and we can then show you some examples of how that works as part of that presentation. Because the hourly rate, yes, it is much lower, but if you look at the average compensation for our bus operators, I don't know, I look at Joe and Les, it's probably what, $85,000, $90,000 a year for pay?
That's all right. We can
That's
put
pay,
that
not
as part
including
of
all
the-
your benefits and stuff. And
as
so we
part
have,
of the report.
but anyway, we'll do a detailed report.
And the 75 hours is not a new, that exists last year. wasn't new last year, right?
Correct. It's been an ongoing thing for decades, but the need for it, once you have additional operators, goes away since we now no longer have a big commute. The commute's what really forced it in the past. It made it economical in the past to have your commute served by one operator doing early and late shifts. Since we no longer have that customer demand, when we have more operators to spread the work out is a logical thing to do.
All right, I think I'm going to pull it back before we're so much trouble. I keep giving Julie the side eye, and I keep asking her.
That's okay, there's a triangular eyebrow.
And I keep
going
looking
on.
at Michael because he's the one that brings us back. Anyway, thank you for the discussion. Thank you, Shane. Information. I think it gets us started talking about things that are necessary to talk about. So we'll move forward. Thank you, Michael. We'll put it on the agenda for July. Report bus driver pay, how it works, and all the idiosyncrasies. Although I caution us not to become payroll works overtime, and we have to cut that too. Then, all right. Number 3, notification previous actions by the auditor controller, and as part of that, we have Monique Spike. Are you still here? Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning. I have a couple brief comments about the markets. It's, as I shared recently, we had a Federal Reserve meeting since we last spoke together. And as anticipated, the Fed held overnight rates steady in a range of 525 to 550. We had shared last time we all were together that it was anticipated that the Fed would drastically shift interest rate policies here, with the anticipation that we'd see less rate cuts in 2024. Their updated projections actually confirmed that assumption. It is now anticipated that we'll only have one rate cut in 2024, perhaps in September and or following the November election. What was interesting about the Fed's projection is that they also showed an expectation of 4 rate cuts in 2025. So if you look at page 10 of your packet, just want to talk a little bit about some of the interest rate implications around the Fed's projection and the market expectations. One, interest rates for the most part during the month of May were in range. It declined slightly from April. That again was anticipated as markets anticipated were to stay in this direction. And we saw rates decline in the 2-year from 504 to 487. Our part, what we had shared that we intend to do for the district's portfolio is to really stay fairly neutral and try to take advantage of interest. If you go to page 16 of your packet, you can see some of the transactions that took place during the month of May. And I want to draw your attention to the
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We'll be reconnecting momentarily. Thank you for your patience. We should be reconnected shortly.
Okay, we're back up again.
Both of People are talking to each other through me, I think, trying to solve this. It's my head.
Okay, we're good. All right. We have no public comment for this item.
All right, good. Thank you. Do I have a motion then, please, to ratify the previous actions by the auditor controller? I have a motion and a second. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item, item number 4, to authorize the budget adjustment or transfers. Authorize it, budget transfers and adjustments to the fiscal year 23-24 operating budget, and I believe Jennifer Minucci. Thank you, Jennifer.
Good morning, Dr. Carr and members of the Finance Committee. The item before you is our year-end budget transfer item that's really just an administrative cleanup to ensure that the budget's in compliance with the board policy, which is that each kind of major category is within $50,000 of itself. So while this item asks for 5.2 million in transfers, 3.5 of it is just really within its own divisions, just moving in different categories. The remaining 2 million, give or take, about $1 million of it is to cover some of the unexpected bridge repairs and some of the depreciation on the administration side. And then the remaining 600,000 is also in some unintended repairs to do in Florida to cover those. In the back of the item in the appendix, it lays out the reason for each transfers, but really as a whole, at the end of the year, our actuals are under our budget. This really is to make sure we're in compliance with the budget. To take any questions with you.
Do I have any questions for Jennifer? Hearing none, any public comment?
No public comment for this item.
All right, do I have a motion for approval?
So
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Bert. The next item, number 4B, the budget increase in the fiscal year 23-24 bus division capital budget for project 1717 San Rafael Transportation Center relocation analysis in clear and preliminary design. Bert, is this one that you would like to recuse yourself on?
Yes.
All right. This is a recommendation from the previous meeting, the Building and Operating Committee. But I still need to know, is there any public comment?
No public comment.
No
for this
public
item.
comment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition, the motion passes. Item number 5, approve actions relative to the State of Good Repair Program. And I believe, Joe, this is yours.
Thank you. Through the chair of the committee. What you have for you is a regular process where we come to the board as required by one of our granting agencies to receive funds. In this case, the State of Good Repair funds, which come from SB1, that was passed back in 2017. The district is in line to receive approximately $1.6 million, which it is planning to place into repair work that's going on at the berths in the San Francisco ferry terminal. And you are authorizing the GM to apply for these funds and for us to fill out the necessary paperwork to receive these funds. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions for Joe on the State of Good Repair Program? Are there any public comments?
No public comment for this item.
May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Have a second? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. They're like, everybody knows. All right, in that case, the motion passes. I have to do this right, or it'll show up in the minutes wrong, and then we'll have to redo it. All right, the next, right, Michael? Okay. The next item is to approve the renewal of the liability and property insurance programs in our insurance person, Kelly Valley. Vitale.
Morning,
Hi,
Director.
Kelly, how are you?
How are you? So I have some precursor that I want to give you about this report, and then I have some good news. So I just got that one of our policies that we have been waiting, insurance is everything renewed, but I did just get almost a $15,000 additional savings. But don't clap, because when you see the last page, right? So what I wanted to give you a precursor about, and you probably already know, is that California is in an insurance crisis right now. I'm sure you all hear it on the news. You're probably faced with it with your homeowners policies. And so the Department of Insurance is finally listening. Unfortunately, they have taken notice and they've scheduled a meeting to meet with all the insurers in California and those that have recused themselves. However, that meeting is not until December. So I don't know that it'll really impact us right now. And you know the bureaucracy of government. So even though they meet in December, I'm not sure what will really change. But with that being said, what's happening is, as you may well be aware, insurers are leaving. They're not renewing. If they are renewing, it's for very limited circumstances. And this is mostly impacting very high risk jobs. So transportation is one of the top three riskiest lines of insurance to place. And so that was what was really challenging. So I just wanted, I'm sure you're all aware, but I just wanted you to understand the kind of environment that the brokers are in. Brokers appreciate the district's business. I think at this time of the year, they're probably really glad to be done with me, because we have 10 policies that we have to place. And I always have to really press to take the district's best interest. And I work really closely with Joe to make sure that we're doing that. So we use a couple of methodologies. We'll take what we've experienced in the past and have we paid, a lot of claims. So for example, in our property insurance, we don't pay a lot in property insurance, but our liability is our biggest exposure. We call that our excess liability. And that's because, it covers general liability and auto. So our buses, our non-revenue vehicles, and so on. And so what we're doing is constantly looking and evaluating what we call our insured retention. So do we want to be fully insured? Do we want to have a very high deductible or self-insured retention? So those are constantly moving, constantly based on what's happening, right? Based on our losses, our experience. So I just want you to know that before you look at the end and see the number that we've done a lot of work to really bring this down. But I'll just start. I'll give you just a brief overview with what we've accomplished this renewal season. So I'm asking for the approval of these 10 policies, and they do total $5,969,161. That changes from what you see on here because I just got the $14,900 change. But so we'll go through each one. So the liability insurance program includes our excess and our auto, and that one we're going to renew. That was where we saw the change. That change, it has an $85 million limit, and it has a couple of different retentions, one for general and one for auto, and that will renew at $4,102,022, 4.1 million. That's the one where we saw the almost $15,000 savings. We did go through about 8 different companies. But what's really hard is to build what we call a tower. So we start with coverage at the $5 million range and then we go up to 85. And each one of those has a different carrier. One will cover 10 million, one will cover 20 million. It's easier to get coverage at the top of the tower because we rarely touch that. It's harder to get the lower coverage. And so that's where since I've been here, we have increased our liability and our auto liability and general liability. We've increased the self-insured retention since I've been here. Joe and I have agreed to increase those. The next one that we are renewing is our excess workers' comp. So we're self-insured in workers' compensation for up to 1.125. And then any claim that would occur after that, we have an excess carrier that would cover that. That was pretty negligible. It didn't change too much. It's renewing at $405,000. And that one, we changed the retention rate last year. And the next one we're renewing is the public officials employment practices. And that also has a self-insured retention, about $250,000. And that premium is about $155,000. The fiduciary liability insurance program, and that's for other public employee benefits, OPEB, that has a $25,000 deductible, and that one is $15,000 renewable premium. And our crime insurance is I think that's a 3-year term. We have a $25,000 deductible up to $1 million occurrence, and that one is just about $3,500 we're renewing that one at. And then F, I'm sorry, I wasn't seeing the page numbers if you're trying to follow. So page 2, number F, is the environmental liability. That one is also renewable on a 3-year term. And the policy limits are $250,000, and we are paying $73,000 for that one. Our cyber liability is one that we've actually seen improvement with because Fong and her team have been really adaptable to the changes that our carrier has asked. And so because Fong and her team have said, yes, okay, we'll do this and we'll do that, they've then allowed us to increase our coverage, and then they lowered our premium. So kudos to our IT team. And that one is renewing for $57,000. And then you'll see on the last page where you can see where the percentage of savings. Then the next one so that was all of our liability. And then the next one on page 2, under item 2, is beginning of our property insurance, and that consists of 3 policies. And that is the property insurance, in which Joe and I are talking about next year increasing that to a $3 million self-insured retention because we don't see a lot of claims. And as you can see right now, between the flood and the property, we're paying $1 million in premiums. So if we raised our self-insured retention there, we could probably substantially reduce that premium. And we're not seeing a lot of losses there, so that makes sense. They weren't able to place it this year, though. And the next one on item B is the marine transit bus property damage. So we have to make sure we have coverage for those buses. That's about $42,000. And then the restricted contingency fee is just for bridge damage and loss of revenue. So then that would take us, the rest of this, I'll see if you have questions about all the information I provided on the other pages, but I think we'll get to the grit on page 8, and that's the actual table where it shows you the coverages, comparing them to last year, so that you can actually.
I think it's page 46 on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's right.
I'm going.
We're there.
I apologize.
It's my favorite page. I had it up here.
Thank you for that. And so this is the table, and this is my favorite too, because you can actually realize and see the changes. And so we have the biggest change, obviously, in our excess, and it was about 15%. I know that's where we saw the change of almost $15,000. It's not going to deviate much. That was our biggest jump. Everything else, so you can see in our public officials, we took about a 15% credit, and in our cyber, that's where our 20% credit in premium was. And everything else, all told, we had right about, for the whole program, all 10 policies, almost $6 million, we saw overall about a 12% increase. So I know that's a lot of information. Do you all have any questions about any of the policies that we're renewing or what I'm asking for?
Are there any questions for Kelly? You do a wonderful job, Kelly. When I looked at this page 46, as you went through as I went through one by one, I thought it would be far greater than 12%. In this market, I think you are to be congratulated, you and Joe, for 12%.
Right, the brokers should be,
Yes, we have a lot of property and a lot of insurance that we
really
need.
Tough. It's
Yes.
really tough.
Are there any questions?
I don't know about everybody else, but I feel the pain.
Yeah, it's hard. Other comments or questions? Thank you so much. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved, but should it be reflected, the $14,000 savings? Should that be incorporated into the motion, or do we just move the $5,984,000?
How about if we make a motion that says, based on Kelly's changes after she reported this? What do you think, Amrit?
I am thinking that we put in there with the final amounts being approved.
Okay.
Is what we've,
The final
negotiated amounts being approved.
And then a chart added to it in the minutes? That
Would
includes
you want me to
yours?
submit it to you?
Yeah, that'd be helpful, that we can say if it's the final negotiated amounts. Okay.
Take that as a friendly amendment, and
Right.
so moved.
Second.
Are there any public comments on this item?
We have no public comments on this item, although we would have taken it before. Hang on 1 second, we might have. Hang on. Let me double check with Justine and check in. Justine, do you have any public comments?
You know, I did hear someone say something, so if you can bear with me, I'll find out. Is there anybody who would like to speak this morning on this item? Thought I heard someone say hello. Okay, I'm not hearing anyone now. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second on the item, which will now read that Amrit will put the real numbers in there as she puts it into the board. Is that good with you, Mike? Do you want it?
That's inexact, but I get the point.
I'll fix it for recommendation tomorrow.
Amrit will make it perfect by tomorrow, and you'll see the numbers. Thank you,
All right.
Director Judy. Yes, all right. Are there any, all in favor, please?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, whatever the motion was. And I hope you understand that Mike and I have this thing about the process. He likes the process to be like this. I'm happy if the process ends up okay at the end, you know? So isn't that an accurate statement? And we managed to love each other and get along with that one. All right, item number 7, approve the proposed fiscal year 24-25 operating and capital budget. Mr. Wire.
Thank you, Madam Chair and the committee. As you remember, to this committee last month, we spent about an hour and went through the proposed budget, and you had some questions, we answered some questions, we had a discussion, you guys had a discussion with each other, and then we told you we would come back to this meeting to bring it back up, answer any other questions that may come out, and then request that you hopefully approve this budget to pass on to the full board, so we'll have a budget in place for the beginning of the fiscal year, which starts on the 1st of the next month, 1st of January. So I don't plan to go over obviously the budget again, but there was a couple of, I would like to go over the recommendations. There was the actions that we are being requested to consider and to take. And then to answer, there were 2 questions that we put on the back that were asked, and we can answer those questions. And then if there are any others, of course, we just take that on the fly after this. So it'll be a short presentation. So if you just look at page 47, that has the recommendations. There are a number of them. There are 4 numbered, and then number 4, some of them have multiple parts. But we're authorizing the items like the goals and objectives and the reserve structure, changes to the table of organization. You're, of course, being informed that it includes negotiated salary increases for some of our units, which have them. And of course, there are others that are under negotiation today. And they did not include any increases for those. And it does not also for the non-represented employees. It includes the capital contribution, which is the very important funds that you use to fund your future capital projects. And then it authorizes a series of actions as under number 4. For example, any action that's taken by the board up to June 30th, of course, is going to be put into the budget document when you receive the printed version or the final version in August. Any carryovers, any complete projects will move. It allows ask for the authority for the district general manager to be able to move projects from the project list, which we discussed, into the budget if there's sufficient time and staff resources to take them on. It finalizes any last minute transfers that may occur, although Jennifer just brought forward the item that does the vast majority of the transfers. And then the last one, E, which is a new one, it incorporates any changes that were in your compensation policy that you passed at your last board meeting in May. And that's included in Appendix B, which we'll look at in just a second. With that, why don't we turn to the end of the item, which was page 51, because you had at your committee, you asked a question about the number of funded versus unfunded positions in the budget. And the way the district's budget has been done for decades now is that we fund everything. And even if they're vacant or whatever, if it's a position the board has approved, it's funded in the budget. Starting with the pandemic, that started to make less and less sense. We've done it for a couple of years, and then this year we really realized that by funding positions that the district has not filled for a number of years and is not likely to, but wants to keep on the books because we're not ready to say that the customers aren't coming back. I think that's the bottom line here. So what you look at this table that's under page 1, the unfunded ones are on the far right-hand column, and there's 118 of them. The vast majority of them are bus operator positions, and we're keeping them on the books because of the idea that service would come back. We would then be able to fund them as service grows, and that if we needed those resources to fund theirs, there's some resources built into the budget for that, as we mentioned last month. But if there needed more, they would come back to this committee, of course, and to the board and say, hey, we've got more service demand. We need to hire more bus operators. We need to be able to pay them. We need the funds to do so. So if you look at the proposed budget had 858, 740 of them are funded, 118 are not. And as I mentioned, the majority of them are bus operators. There's a few other in other parts of the organization that were not funded. And then the flexibility that you provide the general manager also is that if it says, for example, Bridge has got one unfunded position, if the district, there isn't an actual individual position that's been picked out and said that's the one that's not funded, it's generally speaking that there is an understanding that the general manager would be able to fund a position if needed to, and that another one, some other position, would be unfunded. It just means that's how much money was provided in this particular situation. And then going on to number 2, that was the request to have information on the district composition policy and what impact it would have. And that is listed on Appendix B, which is page 53. And you can see there are policy, this particular time affected 24 classifications. If all of them were at step 5 and all of them were, in other words, full.
Yes, hello, I'm willing to speak on this item 7.
$700,000, $250,000 on the budget. This particular, as we mentioned on the board item that came to when the item was approved back in May, this particular adjustment affects more classifications. It's the first time this has been done. The expectation is in future years, 3 years from now when it's done again, that you would most likely have fewer positions affected. And with that, I am open to any other questions you might have on something we have discussed or completely different questions that came up in the budget that you've been storing in your mind you want to talk about before we take any sort of action.
Are there any questions for Joe? Director Gross.
Thank you, Joe. I'm on that page 51. Say, let's take the ferries, the 108 proposed, but there's 5 unfunded. Is that what we had before COVID, was 108? Has that gone down even though?
So the ferry number is, yeah, you talked about casuals.
Yeah, I mean, the authorized positions at Ferry are increased from where they were before COVID. There are more of them than there were before. And Ferry is offering almost exactly the same number of hours of service it used to offer prior to COVID also. It's slightly different. There's a few less hours, obviously trips coming out of Larkspur because of the commute, and there's more because we picked up Angel Island service and we've added more Tiburon service. So it's different than it used to be, but the hours are about the same. So the staff is about the same. And Dennis just mentioned the casuals. That is funding that the district uses in order to ensure that there is sufficient operators, captains or deckhands, and they come out of the hall. And there are fewer casual hours today than there were, but not as substantial as there were, say, 2 years ago when we were running significant less service out of the ferry.
I'll give you an example on casuals. We used to, have all our service maxed out, and we would call the hall to get employees for the baseball ferry boat. Well, today, some of the crews in the baseball ferry boats are doing weekday stuff because we're able to schedule it, which reduces the cost for the district. So the casual hours are down. But we took over Angel Island. We also took over Tiburon midday. And that was a good thing for the district. That gets cars off of the bridge. And it also is an important relationship with state parks and the nonprofit that runs the immigration station out on the island. So our ferry service, last month carried more people than our bus service. And the important thing to know is every ferry trip is a car off the bridge. Only about half of our bus trips are a car off the bridge. The other half are trips that are local within the counties that we operate.
Thank you. And then does the budget anticipate the coalition's in negotiations now, correct? And so this doesn't reflect any increases?
It's been the district's tradition not to fund in the middle of a negotiation process, and that when the board is requested to approve a settlement, which we all assume will come, and the board will take an action. If at that time there was a need to augment the budget, we would ask you to do that at the same time.
And of the district, there's 8 positions. Are those positions we think that we will not be filling, or are they?
We don't know. It depends. As service comes back, with less service, we're able to have less administrative in some areas. In some areas, like IT, it's grown over time just based on the demands. But so the thought is to monitor all that. The thought is that someday we may come back, if all the customers come back, to similar to what we were before, but similar but a little different.
And then I noticed on the bus operators here, it says 186. There was a number, one of you mentioned earlier, 159. I realize that varies, but that's a fairly big difference, 159 to 186. Why are we budgeting 186? Is that just
so we can add service and continue to keep hiring at the current rate? Which
we are budgeting for 186.
We're budgeting to hire, and if customers come back that we need to have more than that, we'll come back to the board so we continue hiring to meet the customer demand.
And is there any, after this budget year, will there be any of the federal government money left?
We'll have expensed it all.
Last month we drew down the last amount of resources. It'll be in your item that comes up after we finish this item, on the finances, 2 items from now.
Nothing in some bank account somewhere?
So there is, it's a good question. You may recall last fall, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission took an action to allocate some transit operating subsidy to agencies with a fiscal cliff. About a half dozen agencies received money. I believe we were one of the larger allocations. Agencies that have fiscal cliffs like AC Transit that carry 10 times more passengers than us got less money than us because, unfortunately for us, our finances are that rough. But so MTC allocated money. It was a multi-year allocation. They're going to revisit every year, which makes us nervous. The first year was very modest, and that'll be in our budget for next year. It's a couple $1 million. And then the following year, it's a more substantial amount that we anticipate receiving. And so we do have state assistance. And that's why there's all the discussion about MTC's transportation regional measure in the select committee, because when that Senate Bill 125 money runs out, BART, SFMTA, and Golden Gate will need to have a path going forward, and the region's very committed to address that fiscal cliff.
And I think it's worth adding, we did talk a lot about this last month, but it's worth reminding that this budget does request that the district put forward its own reserve money in order to fund this level of service. About $34 million of reserve money is going into operating service. Not something we can do forever, but we can do it for this year for one of the reasons that Dennis mentioned, which was we're expecting a larger amount of money from state money next year. So that it would sort of be a one-time blip, and then we'd have to see where we are 2 years from now to whether or not we can afford to continue to do that. The second piece of that reserve spending is that the federal money that did come into the district over the previous 4 years, extremely fortunate to get the $287 million to do this. We would be in a completely different world if it wasn't for those funds that came to the district in order to make up for the loss in ridership and therefore revenue. Some of that was allow the district to not necessarily spend all of the toll money that it would have spent. So some of that toll money did go into the district's reserves, which we will be spending on, the capital projects that the engineering team brings to you and other capital projects. But some of it also, in this case, the $34 million could be spent on maintaining the service level at a higher rate a little bit longer.
Thank you, Joe. Director Maston.
This is really a rhetorical question. At what point do we draw the line on keeping cars from crossing the bridge.
I had that same thought. As you listen, you go, and that keeps cars off the bridge, and you go, Gene.
We're a little schizophrenic, to be honest.
Yeah.
We compete against ourselves, bridge, bus,
Exactly.
and boat. And to be candid, the one that'll get us is Bert's e-bikes. Because
Thank you, Bert.
they don't contribute to our bottom line at all, which is a good thing policy-wise. But as things come back in downtown San Francisco, we don't know what the mode split is. But if cars came back a little faster than bus and ferry, that helps us financially to afford the bus and ferry. And so we're watching that, but people are free to choose. We offer great bus service. We offer great ferry service. And so a lot of people are choosing it already. In the peak hour, we're carrying a lot of people, not as many, but as a percentage of the market, it's decent. The commute's not back. That's our problem. And as it comes back, we don't know how folks will travel. But all are going up. In May, bridge traffic was 2% higher than May a year ago. So that's a positive trend financially, and that's important. Our bus ridership last month was 8% compared to a year earlier. And ferry was 22% up in May compared to May a year earlier. So it's all slowly coming back. It's in fits and bursts, and the ferry piece is a lot of it's recreational as well as commute. While bus is kind of steady growth just overall. But yeah, it would be good if a few more cars came back first.
Yeah, thank you.
Now you're
Thank
probably
you.
scared.
Yeah, right. You're not scared, Bert. Is there any public comment on this item before we take a motion? Shane?
Shane has a public comment, yes.
Thank you, Joe.
I promise this is it, and I will get out of your hair until tomorrow, okay? I just, on page 47 of what Joe
I
just
have
went over,
public comment on this item
just kind of
also,
speaks
please.
to my point. It says includes negotiated salary increases for the Amalgamated Transit Union represented employees. With this run cut, I can assure you they're not going to see that raise. They will not see that raise in their own pocket. Just alluding to a couple things that General Manager Mulligan said. Run cuts are being done right now. I don't know if anybody is aware, but the bus division lost their 2 top schedulers. They quit. The district is now contracting out scheduling for the bus division. So right now, those run cuts are currently being done. So there is time to change things. We have 159 operators on the seniority list. While the number may be 186, we have 159 operators. That is the lowest we've been since the merger of Golden Gate Transit and Greyhound, okay, in the 1970s. We will have the same amount of operators right now in June as we do in August, and our run was cut. It is not because there are more people that are driving buses in August. It is the money is cut, the people are exactly the same. What we've been told, the union has been told that there may be this class of 8 and possibly one more by July of 2025, which is a year away. They don't anticipate that much growth. When speaking about what was affected the most in this run cut, it was the runs on the bottom of the seniority list, the new people, and the people that are at the top of the seniority list, the ones that General Manager Mulligan is referring to, 77 hours. These are the individuals that can retire, and these are the individuals that can quit, who just got there. When you double your minimum paying days, you are not properly compensating people. When it comes to meeting and conferring, I don't know how you can take thousands upon thousands of dollars annually out of a pocket of a worker change in working conditions. I don't understand that. While I understand the pay formula is negotiated, that doesn't make it right that the district can just come in whenever they feel so and swipe money out of bus operators' schedule. And lastly, I want to commend Amarette for what she does here. She works her tail off, and I would never discount that. But I can tell you that the operators that Mr. Mulligan is referring to that made more than Amarette did, they were at work and never took a day off. Never. They were here. The only time they were ever out the whole year was during vacation. They didn't take a weekend. They didn't take any time off. So let's compare it apples to apples if we're going to do that, just so everybody can kind of get an understanding. Thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Shane. Any other comments? Are there people on the line?
We're gonna
For public
poll
comment?
just in case. Justine, since this is the budget item, let's poll the public line one more time to see if there's like, anyone would like to speak on your line, because I see someone's unmuted.
Certainly. If you'd like to speak on today's item, please give me your name and I'll add you to the speaker queue. I do believe I heard somebody speak up.
Yes, my name is David Herrera.
Thank you, David. Can you just give me one moment?
You got it.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this item? Please use ** to unmute yourself and let me know. Okay, I'm not hearing anybody else. David, go ahead, please.
Good morning,
Hey.
David.
Good morning, Board of Directors. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. My name is David Herrera. I'm a bus operator here in the bus division. Unfortunately, I got to follow Shane Weinstein, and I'm going to echo probably all the sentiments and the comments that he has. But and forgive me, I'm nursing a little bit of a cold. But I was drawn to speak on the comments today of the meeting, and as I appreciate the discussion that has started with the Board of Directors and from Shane Weinstein, which is a champion for the bus operators, the greatest champion that I have had the pleasure of working beside in my 23 years here as a bus operator. I just feel that some of the comments are out of line. Obviously, Mr. Weinstein commented on how operators are being paid more than the secretary, and I just want to echo that these operators are in the seat. They're not sitting at home and riding a gravy train, and but they need, and I appreciate the discussion that is being set forward on the impact of this happening in the budget that impacts the operators' lives. You got to understand they don't live in the area. They can't afford to live in the area, so they need this income. They need this income to provide for their families, provide for their children, they provide for their household items that they need. They don't understand the fiscal cliff. Some of them, they can't wrap their heads around it, and it's very hard, including myself, to understand. But what they do understand is they do understand how it affects their lives. When they're just, the rug is just taken out from under them, and it's told that there's going to be approval for, compensation packages for other people that are 5% below market value, and they're at 14% and growing. It's very difficult to understand. So please, I appreciate the discussion, and the Board of Directors, I appreciate the talk, and to really understand, and hopefully we get this money that was taken away from operators that are going to affect their lives greatly, reestablished and put back in the budget. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Herrera. That concludes public comment. Do I have a motion for this item? A second?
Second.
Any objections? All right, but all in favor, I'm sorry, Mike, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's been a long week at my house. All right, on to the next item. The status report on the fiscal year 23-24 budget. I believe this is our waterfall. Mr. Wire.
Thank you very much. Yes, now we'll turn our attention to the current budget, which is almost over. We are clearly just a couple days away from the end of the fiscal year, so this is looking at through 11 months. And just to summarize, it has not changed. This month, obviously, it's into June, but we'll get it in July. And that we'll use the remaining federal funds to balance it. There have been significantly less expenses because, as we mentioned at the beginning of the fiscal year, that this was a budget that was based on the idea that service would bounce back higher than it actually did. So we did not spend some of the money. So that helped us balance the budget. Also, as reduced expenses. And then, of course, there was increased revenues, which we will go over in the next item when we look at the district's, or two items from now when we look at the district's finances. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. This is not an item that has to be voted on. We will take public comments.
And the speakers on this item?
All right, thank you. Is there anyone from the committee that would like to ask Joe about this? If not, we'll move on to the next one, which is also yours, Joe. monthly review of Golden Gate Bridge traffic tolls and bus and ferry transit patronage fares for the 11 months ending May 2024.
Yes, thank you very much. If I could just have you turn to the table on page 67. And just for the fun of it, we're going to look at the three numbers that Dennis mentioned. We got them all exactly right, which is pretty good. They're on the left-hand side of the box. It say bridge, bus, and ferry.
Expect that from you, Joe.
Yeah. May's increase month over month was 2% for bridge. If you go down to bus, it was 8% for bus, and it was 22% for ferry. So that's pretty good to get that right up the chart. So in other words, he did my job on that one. So what's good to know is they are greater than they were last year. They are slightly less than the trend has been this year, which means that we might be getting to a flattening a little bit, but they're still growing. It's not as a high rate of growth as it was early in the year, but it's still growing, and that's a good thing. And then if any other questions, there's the tables, the graphs that follow this measured over 5 years, and also the fiscal year in question. In other words, that's all I have to say on that one.
All right, thank you. Are there any public comments on this one?
No public comments on this.
All right, any committee comments? All right, this one also doesn't require a vote. So let's move on to the next one, Joe. Monthly review of financial statements for the 10 months ending April 2024. Statement of revenues and expenses, and statement of capital programs and expenses.
Thank you. If you turn to page 73, we'll just look at the table on the front of page 73. Again, it's continuing to be positive, and that's the column that's on the far right-hand side. The bold numbers are your district operating revenue, the district operating expenses, and then the consolidated revenues over expenses, and it still is revenues over expenses by $2.9 million through 11 months, and that's excellent. Much better than we expected, as you can see from the column to the right, to the left, and then two columns to the left is what it was last year at this time. So both very good news. The reason for this, and we'll go over in more detail when we summarize the whole year in the coming month, but the reason for this is really that the tolls and fares are up by about 11 million, interest income is up by 12, and then the sales tax funds that we receive from the counties are up by 8. And that really makes the big difference. We would expect to be able to hold on to those increased tolls and fares and most of that tax revenue. The interest income we probably won't hold on to next year. Some of it was to do with the change in the market value of securities, and that probably won't happen again next year. But it's very positive. Expenses are up also a little bit. And that's primarily salaries and related activities, professional services, and repairs materials from running a little more service and having, therefore, more staff on board this year. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on finances.
Thank you very much. Are there any public comments?
We have no public comments on this item.
Are there any comments from the committee? All right, with that, we'll move on to the next item. My script says, before we continue to item 11, which is a closed session, if there are no objections, I'd like to accommodate the public one more time. Now instead of after closed session. Are there any objections to taking public comment now? Hearing none. Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public wishing to address the committee under item 12, which I think we already did at the beginning, but we'll do it again, which is public comment.
Justine, would you like to pull one last time on the public line to see if there's anyone?
Certainly. Is there anyone that's on that would like to speak at the Finance Auditing Committee meeting? Under public comment, please use * to unmute yourself and let me know. I am not hearing anybody, Madam Secretary. Thank you.
All right, good. Thank you. Thank you to everyone for your patience during the meeting. It was a little bit different than we generally have them, but we'll be placing the public on hold for the duration of our closed session item and return after closed session to adjourn the meeting. Attorney General Sherman.
Congratulations is in order.
All stand and salute. General Sherman. Attorney Julie Sherman will take us into closed session. Julie, I'll
Thank
turn
you.
things over to
Thank
you.
you, and thank you for the
gratefully.
promotion.
Yes, you're welcome.
I hope I pull well. So we do have one conference with legal counsel, which is existing litigation, and we one case, and we'll report out after closed session.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your patience, everybody. While we're in closed session, please remember to keep your own devices on mute.
All right. All right.
Now, Julie.
Thank you, and I'd like to report out of closed session that there is no reportable action under the Brown Act.
Thank you for that. Are there any other actions for this committee? If not, may I hear a motion to adjourn? Thank you for your tolerance today.